All right, and we are live with the filmmakers for our namesake short block, Story Over Everything, shorts, true stories. So just gonna go clockwise, starting with Ivan, and we will just go through and introduce ourselves and which film we made, yeah? Ivan, mic test. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we hear you now.
Sorry about this.
We know that you said that you were so happy to be here. So
yeah, of course, thanks. Yeah. So yeah, I'm Ivan, director of Blue Frontier.
We're just gonna. Can everyone unmute your mics for a second? Okay. Are we hearing each other right now? Can you hear each other right now?
Okay. Hola. Yes.
Then what the hell is going on with me? Am I the only person who can't hear anything?
Hola. Hola.
Well, who's gonna host?
Okay. Scroll over to the private chat there for a second.
Makeup.
Unbelievable.
Ooh, it's more people.
Hey.
Hello.
Hey.
Hello. Oh.
Oh, it's gone.
Just
Short and sweet.
and we're live.
Yeah, that was a short friendship.
Well, what time is it wherever else is?
It's 8 o'clock in London.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Are we still broadcasting?
I think so. This is going out to hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah. Apparently it's comedy. It's gonna be good with the laughter and the background. This is gonna be pretty good.
It's a prank. I'm putting all the filmmakers in front of the camera.
Yeah.
What we do.
It's a documentary block, you remembered.
Yeah.
Oh, shoot.
That's a short film in progress.
Yeah.
Well, what should we talk about?
Fantastic films, everyone. I really enjoyed them.
Yeah. I felt like your film, was it your fighter?
Yeah, that was me.
It made me think a little bit of like stories we tell.
Thank you so much.
And it was really powerful. Yeah.
I'm back.
Yay.
I don't know what the hell just happened there. Okay, so we are back, and I apologize to anyone for those technical difficulties, but we can get started. So let's go around with Ivan, and I'm sorry, I thought no one could hear you, but apparently I couldn't hear anybody. So let's start again with Ivan and introduce your film, Blue Frontier. Yeah. And if everyone else can go on mute while Ivan is talking.
Thank you very much. So yeah. I'm director of short film Blue Frontier. It is my first short film, which I directed. Basically, it's a film shot in my hometown about the oldest fisherman trying to catch the biggest fish in his career, and I guess it's big metaphor for chasing your dreams and being patient and dedicated to your desires.
Perfect. Megan? Why am I seeing this? Sorry, Guillermo.
Hola, everybody. I'm from Spain, but I happen to be in the States right now. Why? Who knows? But anyways, here I am. As you can see by the white hair, I'm kind of the grandfather of the reunion. But that's good news, I think, for short films, because when I started my career, I'm a journalist, but I've been involved in movies in and out in my career, short films, long films, television. When I started my career, I always thought that short films were the beginning, was kind of a place to, try out some ideas with a low budget. And then the real McCoy, the real story had to be told in a feature. Through the years, I learned that every story has a way of telling that is really fits the best for it. Sometimes stories should be told in a phone conversation, and that's all. Sometimes it's a book. Sometimes the format is a long feature, and sometimes it's a short film. I'm so happy that we did, with my brother and I directed this story in the format of a short film, because that's the format that the story was asking for. And doesn't mean that, it is that way because we didn't have the budget, even though we didn't have any budget. But that's not the reason. The reason is because that story, I think, fits in that format. And this format should be a format that people should take not for granted, like something to experiment, but something like it has a big value. It's a way of communicating. And especially in this time that people don't have the patience that my generation used to have. We got music on an album. We listen to, the level A, side B, half an hour, again and again. And now the span of attention is 3 seconds. But anyways, so the story is about hunger. It's in the Philippines, and it's a mission for an organization called Action Against Hunger.
Hi, I'm Megan Brown. I'm the director of Fighter. And I am, I suppose, emerging documentary filmmaker based in Toronto, but originally from the East Coast. And the East Coast, I would say, is probably one of the main characters in most of the films that I make. So, and Fighter is no exception. It's a story about my own family and my own experience. And as Thomas mentioned, it is heavily inspired by Sarah Polley's Stories We Tell. I always find that to be the greatest compliment when someone compares my film to hers, because I found that to be a big inspiration and a big source of questioning for me to say, like, what is my own story, and would people kind of care about a story that I've been living for my whole life. So that's kind of where it started. I wanted to tell a story about firefighters because it's something I was close to, but I didn't really know where to start. And it was other people that I pitched the film to that approached me and said, kind of, why don't you just ask your own family? Why are you going so far outside of your own circle of knowledge when you have 3 firefighters living in your house? So that's kind of where it started, and it kind of took off from there. But yeah, and I'm really, really excited that it screened at this festival. So thanks again for having me, and among all of these really, really great other filmmakers. So I'm really pleased to be here.
Hello, I'm Oscar Albert. I'm the director of School Ties. I'm here in the UK. I'm a British filmmaker. The film is based on a memory I had from being a kid. I went to a school very similar to the one that is depicted in the film. And for some strange and convoluted reason that I don't quite have access to, I ended up making a movie about that memory. And it's presented here at Penn Dance. I'm very happy to be here.
Hi, I'm Thomas Sandler. I am here from Belgium, and I made The Curiosity of Edward Pratt, which is about the first circumnavigation of the world on a unicycle. Other than Guillermo, who said that his short film was specifically made for the short format, I think my film was made for our second year university course, and we were limited to 12 minutes, and that's why it's 12 minutes, which was a whole challenge in and of itself. But yeah, so it's great to be here among such titans of films. Yeah, thank you.
Hey, I'm Ismail, a French filmmaker, but my story is happening in Belgium. So I made Malbec. It's my first professional film. It's portraits of a woman, Sabine, who just wakes up one day and she has the head shaved and scars everywhere, and she's wondering why she has all that, and she's in a bed in a hospital, and people are saying to her that she just escaped from she survived from a terrorist attack, a bomb that exploded in the Malbec station. And so the story is about this woman who has amnesia, who doesn't remember anything, and she's trying to find these missing pictures. And all these events, we had the 5th year anniversary just a few days ago, because it was the 22nd of March 2016 that it happened. So yeah, basically my film is about that.
Excellent. Thank you all for that introduction. I was realizing when I was listening to all of you talk that it reminded me of a conversation that I was having with Odishay a bit yesterday on one of our panels. And he was talking about how difficult it is to be taken seriously when you're starting out. Like, how difficult is it to stand out? How difficult is it to have people see your work for what it is, as opposed to, oh, they just made a 12-minute film, call me when it goes to Sundance, call me when it goes to Netflix. And I see the talent on this panel. It is staggering. It's absolutely staggering. There's like chills, you know, because as programmers, we know what we see in young work. We've seen a lot of filmmakers who've, you know, you mentioned Sarah Polley, like we've seen her first, you know, few films. Like we've seen a lot of and generally speaking, the question that I always ask myself is, are they trying to provide answers with their films, or are they asking questions with their films when I'm watching the films? And generally speaking, people who are asking questions with films tend to go on to make progressively better films as they conclude for themselves answers to those questions. So speaking of questions, that was a smooth segue to the fact that I have questions for you guys. So I want to start with Blue Frontier, because it was the first film that screened in short block. So you already touched on this. Is the fish a metaphor for something larger and considerably more open-ended? But would you like to elaborate on that? Because you did say that it was about dreams. So, and I think that comes through. So, you know, so.
Well, yes, I think that what I had on my mind while making the film was that not only the fish is a metaphor. I'll start with the title of the film, although it's physically a border between two countries. Danube River is dividing in that region Serbia and Romania. I like to think that it's a frontier of two much bigger things, like two worlds. Even at the end, you can think about it as a border between life and death. And for me personally, it was the when I was a kid, I thought it's the end of the world, because I used to play the park nearby the banks of the Danube River, and it was the end of world for me, because only thing you can see from that point was some big hills behind the river, and you can't see anything behind that. So That's one of the metaphors in film. Also, a river as a motif. It's like I don't know. You can think about it like life, and definitely the biggest leitmotif is fish, obviously, and it is a meeting of different side of your own personality, or chasing your dreams, and I wanted to hide that fish as much as I can, because I thought if I show it, it could destroy your imagination and your thinking of that fish. So I think yes.
Spielberg would agree with that. That's a Jaws reference right there. Same theory.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, and I left to the audience to decide whether he caught the fish, or he missed the maybe final opportunity.
Thank you so much for that. I think that really comes through in your film, by the way. We heard a lot of comments from people who watched the films, and I've asked people, please send me comments as you watch the films, and tell me what you think about that, because we're always looking for feedback. People loved your film, so I'm very happy to have you on this panel. Guillermo, if you can unmute your mic there, I have a question for you. I'm going to change the question from the pre-script, because I think this is such a softball question, and I get from talking to you and also talking to your brother. He says you're very, very fast with the English. Yeah. So I want to talk about what's it like to direct with your brother, because I mean, for those of you who don't know, Guillermo's brother is an Oscar-nominated director, and he's an incredible director. And you know, the world is so big, and yet for most people in this world, the world is very tiny. It's their city, it's their village, but the world is very large. And winning a Goya is a huge accomplishment in Europe. And telling people here that someone has won a Goya several times, they're like, "What's a Goya?" So you know, please talk about what it's like to what is that relationship like with your brother? How do you bounce ideas? Do you ever want to kill each other? Please let me know.
Sure. First, let me briefly, because Ivan was talking about the river, and I just came from the border of Texas and Mexico, doing a TV piece about the migration crisis that we live. And I just want quickly give people who are listening an idea that it came to me when I was at the border. And I think borders are something that we decide ourselves. The only thing is some are lucky enough that, to be able to cross them, and some unfortunately are unable to do it. And that's the unfairness. But I mean, when I'm in the United States, I'm from Europe. When I'm in Europe, I'm from Spain. When I'm in Spain, I'm from Madrid. When I'm in Madrid, I'm from the Salamanca quarter, but not for Salamanca neighborhood, the whole thing, just for the close one to the park. The other one, I don't give a shit about it, and so on and so on. So, you know, you always have borders between you and between your political family, between your school and the school of your friends, so, you know, when we think about immigrants, we are all immigrants, and we'll deal with immigrants of a different story. It's all in our mind, and we're all human beings. But anyways, working with my father with my brother was a huge surprise. He's a director. He's a very well-known director in Spain. As a good director, he's got a huge ego. So I never thought I could work together and co-direct something. I always wrote stuff with him. I'm a journalist. I'm a writer. So I done several scripts with him, working with him, but always knowing that he was going to be the guy who was going to direct the film. So at the end of the day, you know, if that's the way he wanted, I would say, okay, whatever, you're going to direct it, right? But I always thought there was something interesting in trying to work together. And for some reason, through the years, I decided that it was going to be impossible, because he's a director. and because he's my brother. So family is another thing. It's like, don't worry with your family. Thank you very much. Anyways, it was a huge surprise, very good for me, and I think very good for him. And the way to do it is, I think both of them at this point in life know that we wanted the best for the picture, not the best for ourselves. We didn't care about how big was our name was going to be on the screen, or how many credits we were going to get, or how much recognition each one was supposed to have. I didn't care if people thought that he was funnier than I was, or he was savvier, or he was not. And the other thing is, at this point in life, we know each other pretty well. Technically, he's a master. I will never have the vision, the eye that he's got. I mean, he goes to the place and he said, from here, he knows how to place the camera, which angle, which lens, and what kind of movement. I mean, he's like that, right? It's something that I will have to study, but he knows it right away. But I'm much better with the people. I'm much better with the actors. I know how to tell a kid, calm him down and make, do the stuff that we want him to do, or at least portray the emotions that we want to show on the screen. And so in this film, what we did is pretty much he deal with all the technical aspects, and I deal with the people and with the locations and with telling people what was happening. Because this film, you have to understand, we went to the Philippines, we went to a dam site, 2 people from Spain, plus a cameraman, plus a producer, 4 people. We didn't speak the language, so we found somebody who knew English. With our, the 3, out of the 4, I spoke some English, but the rest were like, little bit. So that little bit of English into the local language of Maranao, and from the local language to Maranao, from the dialect of the people who were on the dump and were doing the movie. And pretty much were coming from the moon, and they thought, oh my God, these guys are coming here to do a documentary again and say how sad is the life of poor people who you pick up stuff in the garbage every day, and and pretty much the white man, portraying the little poor black man, and how life sucks. And we said, no, man, we're coming here because we're sure that your culture has something beautiful, but we didn't discover it yet. We want you to show us that, make us love that, and we want to show people that you have dignity and you have something to offer to the world. So it's not about you discovering the world, it's about the world discovering you. And when that thing was understood, after 7 days of talking and misunderstandings and laughing a lot, finally everything flew. And flew in a way that we didn't have a budget, but we have, I'm sure we were the filmmakers with the biggest budget ever. Because when the whole village understood that film, for some reason, was good for the village, the whole village was open for us. So we needed a bicycle. A guy was coming on a bicycle. Hey, do you mind? The guy will give us the bicycle. Stay there 3 hours, 4 hours, 4 days, whatever. Till the bicycle was done. We didn't have said that somebody has to cook some meal. We knock at the door. Those people will cook the meal for us and serve it on the table. Everything. It's like the whole thing was, we have every single landscape, every single prop, every single actor. It was amazing. So in a way, that experience was, so cool. And as I said, my brother and I, we understood that we have 2 different roles, and we just, it's not exactly that he did the camera and I did the actors. We just were mingling, and the script, we did it together. But we knew that whatever it was best for the film, it was best for us too.
I think when I'm a director as well, and one of the things I learned very early on was that the minute you lose the trust of your cast and your crew, an excellent performance, the potential for that is gone. At best, you can get passable. So I think it's really important that Javier has like the eye and the vision, and what you're describing is basically God-given talent, right? Is vision, and I've seen some of his films. I'm a huge fan. Please convey that to him, or I'll convey that in an email. He is a master. You're not stretching that at all. But the other side of it is also extremely important, especially as a documentary filmmaker, to make people feel comfortable and to make people feel like they're not being exploited for some sort of, because you get a very different documentary when that happens. So thank you so much for shedding some light on that. Let's go over to Megan. We have a question for you. Okay, so what are the unique challenges of working with your own family as a subject of a documentary? Now, honestly, I loved this documentary. I just want to throw that out there. I watched it. I wasn't expecting a hell of a lot. I got to be honest, we go through about 600-800 submissions a year. And, God, but it gripped me. It started to get into me, and I don't know if it's because a lot of what I've been thinking about is what first responders are going through right now. I don't know if it's because I've never really had a first responder in my family, so I've never really had to deal with the panic. But by the time your end scene happened, which bravo, by the way, you guys all really nailed the endings of your films. By the time that ending came, I was so worried about what happened there. So please elaborate a little bit, not on what I'm saying, but rather the first question I asked about how difficult it was to work with your own family.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much covered it. It was difficult from the get-go when I knew, because it's very difficult. I learned very quickly to interview people that you, or at least you think you know their entire story. So sitting down to write interview questions, I think, was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, because I would ask questions with a whole bunch of context that, recognizing that everyone else doesn't have. And on the flip side, I would be asking questions based on things that I already know. And so I found it difficult to kind of get into the nitty-gritty of kind of what I didn't know. And that's kind of the basis of where I wanted the story to go, which is why I didn't try to hide the fact that I was there and that I was present and that it was me who was talking to my dad and my grandfather and my brother and my mom. And I mean, I'm really blessed to come from a family of storytellers. So they really did that for me. But it was very challenging also because of the nature of what you're talking about, right? You're talking about first responders and what they see on the job. And, for those of you who may know and love first responders, they go through a lot that they may or may not choose to tell you. And, I am no mental health expert. So it was difficult kind of navigating. I didn't want to put my family, of course, they agreed to be in this film to support me, to help me. This was actually also my thesis film for my graduating project. So they wanted to help me kind of succeed and wrap up school and tell the story that I wanted to tell. But on the flip side, I didn't want to put them in uncomfortable situations or potentially triggering situations. So there was a lot of research that went into that because, of course, we want to hear those stories. We want to hear, I'm a grown up now. I'm not a 6-year-old. You can tell me what you went through and what you saw, and it's, it'll upset me, but I can handle it. But you have to consider, asking someone to retell those kinds of stories comes with its own kind of set of challenges, and you want to make sure you establish that level of trust and comfort with the people that you're interviewing, so that obviously you give them the space to tell the story that they want to tell, but you also don't let them kind of end up in a situation where they may be kind of upset or uncomfortable in that way. So that was very challenging. But I mean, I had a fantastic crew with me. So I got into the habit of, I would ask a few questions and then I would turn around and say, does anyone else want to ask a question? Did anyone else miss something? Is there information that I forgot or that I didn't cover? And so that's actually where a lot of the more kind of organic questions came from. They came from when, my, first AC behind the camera would go like, hey, actually, I'm really curious about this. And, my dad would be like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll talk about that. And when he was speaking to the first AC instead of me, he was actually giving more context and more kind of natural storytelling, because he was talking to someone who had a lot less context than I did. So that was really helpful. And just, I guess just having a team around me was really helpful, especially in the edit, when I would say like, oh, well, that's not interesting. That doesn't matter. That's my brother being my brother. It's not necessary to the story, but, I have my editor stop me and go, no, I think that's actually really compelling. I think we should consider putting it back in the film. So that's, it was a challenge, but I think it was ultimately a journey for me as well as for my family. And I think we all kind of learned a lot. And it's great to bring the story of first responders, of being the loved one of a first responder kind of to the forefront. I've had conversations with a few people who have also been children of first responders or spouses of first responders. And it's kind of a different level of fear, when you're at school and it's on the news that there's a big fire or a big emergency or, a car accident, explosion, anything like that. Everyone's glued to the TV, and I'm just not, because I don't want to see it, because I know who's there and I know that they may not be safe right now. So it's just a different kind of feeling. You know, it's great having a parent home a lot of the time, but it's scary when they're not home, kind of thing. So digging into that kind of story was something that really pushed me to make this film, and to kind of appeal to audiences who have loved ones who are first responders, and also appeal to audiences who don't, because it is, I think when you're living it, you don't realize that it's a little bit different, and it comes with its own kind of stresses and challenges. But I think it makes for an interesting story that ultimately ends up kind of bringing people together, because whether you are related to a first responder or not, they're out there. You hear them all the time. You see them all the time. So, yeah. Oh, we can't hear you.
I forgot to unmute myself. This pales in comparison to the technical issues we had yesterday. So yeah, we were trying to do a simultaneous broadcast on Instagram plus this, and we had echo throughout. So today's going a lot better. So I realize now that I'm reading this this question, that it's such a incomprehensibly large question that I've got for you here, Oscar. But who we are impacts how we see the world. This is our perspective, dictated at times by age, education, etc. So while we do see the story through the eyes of a little boy struggling to comprehend what can be interpreted as an adult situation, some of us are adults, and we may project our own theories into what happened to his friend. So that all being said, perhaps needlessly, why do you think he ran away?
That's interesting. I mean, I think it was constantly a battle throughout making this movie, from writing this movie to shooting this movie, whether or not we should say what happened to the friend. And ultimately, I decided that we leave it a mystery. I don't know whether or not that's the right decision. I still don't really know. You know, I'll leave it up to everyone else who watches it. But I'm going to dodge your question about what happened to him by giving like a little a politician's answer, and say that, like I introduced myself, this story was a memory. I was that kid at that school. In fact, that very same school that we shot at is the school I went to. And the den that they find him in is the same den that I found him in when I was his age, Sid's age. And why did that memory of finding a boy in the woods with my friends stick with me more than any other childhood memory? Why did it stick with me to the point where I got to the age of 25 or whatever, and I just felt like I had to make this film? And I think it's the fact that we were never told why he ran away. No one ever told us. The teachers shielded us from it. Eventually he was caught stealing loo roll from a supermarket nearby and taken away by the police. That was the last time I ever saw him. You know, I never saw him again. And I think that mystery is at the core of the memory for me. Like, it's why that memory continues to resonate. But ultimately in the story for Sid, the main character, it's why he ran away is so irrelevant. The thing that hurts him at the end is that he knows that he didn't come back for him. He didn't come back to get the gang back together. You know, the truth of it is irrelevant. Does that answer your question? I feel like that's the biggest politician's answer ever.
So, I mean, it does, but I think every one of us could probably remember to a time when we were children where we asked an adult a question and we received an answer fitting of the child that we were. So, you know, whether it was asking about what the red means on the mail, what does it mean, third notice? And we were given, you know, oh, it's okay, right? We are lied to a lot as children. And so, you know, sometimes it's we ask a teacher, what's wrong with my friend? Why did my friend leave the school? And maybe the real answer is that the parents are getting divorced, but nobody says that to an 8-year-old. So the kid just leaves, and we're left with the trauma of not knowing, right? So that's perhaps me projecting onto your film my own interpretation, but that's actually the best part about film, is that you have left it open for people. So I asked our programmers what they thought happened, and I'll share with you privately because I don't want to give away anything about your film, what they thought happened. But
I want to know.
so yeah, there you go. So I teased you there. So my point is, we are all projecting our own images of what we think these things mean, which is my rambling question was basically gesturing at that. And now I have another question, which is, you know, very much in the same vein, and it's for Thomas, which is, why do you think Ed did it? So just for people who don't know, you know what, there are some people probably here who are tuning in who have not seen these films. So I just want to run a quick trailer that we cut together for the Story Over Everything block, and just give people an idea of what you just missed and why you should tune in next time. And if you did watch it, maybe it's a nice little stroll down memory lane to what you just watched an hour ago. Okay, so let's just get this in.
When you get inside, snuggle up in your bunk just because you don't have the balls to do anything fun.
Oh, fuck. Oh.
Okay. Yeah, so now that we can ask you, now that people have seen clips of this random man traversing godforsaken, God knows where, on a unicycle, now we can ask you the question of why this child, basically, at the time, decided to do this, and why you think he did it.
Why did Ed do it? I mean, as it says in the documentary, I think Ed doesn't know why Ed unicycled around the world. I think his sister probably got closest to it when she said, you know, he just likes unicycling and he wanted to see the world. I think for Ed, unicycling around the world was one of those things where he just saw it as, well, if I can unicycle for a full day, and I can just do that for 3 years, then I could probably get around the world and come back home. And so he didn't see it as like this incredible challenge of like unicycling around the world. He just took it day by day. And so, you know, I don't necessarily, I can't tell you why Ed did it. I think he's just one of those people who doesn't see anything as impossible as long as they can break it down into feasible little bits. But I'm sure he's going to do a lot more things that are going to surprise us a lot.
I think some people, oops, oh, I'm not unmuted, perfect. I do think that some people just are wired a little bit differently from a very young age, and they are perhaps taught or they learn to believe that things that seem impossible aren't really impossible. But I also wouldn't discount the fact that sometimes things become a representation of something else. And I think that that's something that ties Ivan's film to your film, right? And it is about people who are aspiring for something great, right? And unicycling around the world is something that is truly difficult. And in that difficulty, perhaps just as in the difficulty of finding that fish, that we may, on that journey, learn something about ourselves. It's something Guillermo touched on about the limited attention span that we have as a generation. And I'm speaking to my own generation because I'm a millennial. And we do. Things that are hard, often sometimes people don't really aspire to them, but it is often, we're very destination oriented. When am I getting there? How do I get there? But I think that both Blue Frontier and The Curiosity of Edward Pratt talk about journey. And I think that that's a really interesting segue into the next film, Malbec. And I promise I did not pre-script these little transitions that I'm going on. I'm just like, I'm like an old person with Alzheimer's, and I'm just like strolling down the pathway and finding something tangible to grasp onto that I can segue off. But this is an amazing film, and you said this was your first professional film, and it's a phenomenal film. It's an absolutely breathtaking film, and I think as much as it is very specifically about the crisis, the tragedy in Belgium, I think it's broadly applicable to so many other events. And I had somebody message us throughout the during the festival, and they said that it brought them back to 9/11. Because they're originally from New York, and they said that this really brought them back to how they felt, because they were actually there during 9/11. They were very, very close to the tower, and they had a very different interpretation of what their experience was. And later on, they were watching news clips and whatnot, and their perspective got distorted by what was the fashionable clip that kept playing. So speaking of Malbec, what thoughts and memories do you have of the tragedy, and why did you decide to make a film exploring this?
Yeah, so basically the first idea just came in my mind before the terrorist attack from the 22nd of March. Because back then I was living in Molenbeek, which was pointed by Trump as the hellhole of the terrorism in Europe, because all the terrorists, some terrorists like Al Abdeslam were living there, and I was doing back and forth between Paris and Brussels. And when you had the 13th of November in Paris, then all changed. I mean, all my how to say, my daily life changed, because, for example, I was controlled at the train station, and because they saw marked on my ID card, like living in Molenbeek, it was then a nightmare. Like they were checking everything, and I was like, wow, because you see one news, you associate everything to the events. So I decided to put my camera on some spots in Molenbeek and just run it. And I was inspired by all postcards to do the frame, and people were talking to me just because of this camera that was sitting. Like, what are you doing? And then they were talking about life, you know, and it was really, yeah, really different from all the testimonies that you can have when you go because of a terrorist attack in Molenbeek. It was super interesting, like very different from what we saw from this area at this time. But this project, it was blown out because of the 22nd of March. And I have to say that it's not just this reason, but my deep link with this event is that I just came back from a film workshop that I was doing in Romania on the 21 of March, going in the Zaventem airport station, which was another spot that where we had an explosion, and I had an appointment at Pétillon, which is a station after Malbec. It's the station where the terrorists started their stuff. And I had this appointment on the 22nd, and I said to the director just the day before, hey, I'm a bit tired, so can we postpone from 9 to 10:30? And it was, yeah, it was basically the same hour or the same time where we had this explosion in Malbec station, and this was my daily routine, you know, to take this distraction. And 3 or 4 years before, I was living in front of this station, so it's really, for me, an intimate space. I mean, I lived in a way all the events from Paris, but I never lived in Paris, so I'm not touched yes, I'm French, but I'm not touched by that. But I was more touched in Belgium, in Brussels especially, because I lived there for 8 years, and yeah, everything, all my memories, everything is linked to this space. And after that, I just woke up in the morning, like it was. I remember that it was very a sunny day, and I just switched on my cell phone, and I received like dozens of messages saying, "Where are you? Are you safe?" Everything, and then you see everything on the social networks, all the amateur video. Then you have the journalist reports, everything, and 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 as you said, what is really strange is that since the 9/11, nothing changed in the way we speak, we talk about it, we inform people about a terrorist attack. It's the same way of, in a way, playing the game of terrorism, because terrorism is not just to wound like 10 or hundreds of people. It's to wound thousands of people thanks to the power of images. So we had this very anxious atmosphere in Brussels, which is not common, with all these like these reports, like that was like a loop, like a GIF, it's like a GIF, and all this it provoked something on me. Like I was astonished. That was the first time, because I'm a very rational person. I was like, why am I have this feeling, and to bypass this, to go over this, I just decided to meet some some people that were close to that. For example, the first guy who tweets about the terrorist attack was just a guy who was at the airport. He tweeted, and then he had 10,000 message of journalists who wanted the picture or who wanted his interview, and they even didn't ask, "Hey, are you safe? Are you okay? What do you feel?" No. It was just the thing, So, and I continued that, and I met firefighter, I met urgentist, and at the time I had this email from a survivor, Sabine, who wrote me, "Hey, I'd like to meet you, but I don't remember anything, but we can have a cup of tea." And I said, yeah, with pleasure. So that was my first meeting with Sabine, and we talked one afternoon about nothing, because she doesn't remember anything. And after that, after all this very deep testimony, it was very difficult to imagine an image, to imagine something. I was like, okay, maybe we can make a film about it to have a different point of view than what we have from the media, from the screen. Maybe we can do a film with just a black screen, And then when I made some research, I found this film from Iñárritu, who is 9/11, and it's a film with a black screen most of the time. So I was like, okay, maybe there is nothing to do about it, because he made something great with all this absence of pictures and all the sound that reminds us the craziness of the medias, and so I stopped the project because it was difficult to think about it. It was difficult to, maybe a bit intimate. And then some years later, I was like, maybe I can start again, and why not trying to think about the mise en scène? Maybe there is another way. And this other way for me was really to think about animation as a way to fill the missing image of Sabine, to reanimate the memory. And I continued to talk with her, and to imagine mise en scène, thanks to to the talk that we had together. So that was the start of the second step of the process. Animation.
That's really interesting. I just want to ask you all a question. If you can just nod if you agree. Are you starting to see why you were all in the block together? There's some very very interesting themes that tie this thing together, and that's really how we select blocks of pendants. We're ruminating on a theme, on an emotion, and I think this is such a beautiful film that you've made. Just yesterday, we were having a conversation with a documentarian. We were doing some sort of media stuff, and he was talking about how difficult it would be to shoot these very intimate scenes at a reservation, because the film is about some very it's a very sensitive topic, and the host said, "Why don't you just animate it?" I also want to say something that sparked while you were speaking was how much film is an audio-visual medium. Audio came first, and people often will stop short of excelling with audio because they think that it's just enough to get the dialogue and EQ on the right levels and get all the levels right. But really innovative audio sound design can really immerse a viewer, and they wouldn't even understand why they just felt the way they felt. I do have one more question for each of you, but I wonder how you all would feel if we actually had you ask each other a question. So I want to just open it up, because you have mostly all watched. And look, if you don't want to do that, I can ask my second question. But I think it would be so much more interesting to have filmmakers on filmmakers, because we're a film festival that's filmmakers for filmmakers. So why not have a question? So does someone have a question for Ivan and Blue Frontier? If not, I'm going to ask my question. Okay, I'm gonna ask.
Maybe I have a question for Megan. For Megan.
Okay, sure.
So my question is, how did you achieve to have a distance or an objective point of view from a familiar environment or social environment?
Yeah, great question. I think the quick answer to that would be, because this was my thesis film, we have a kind of feedback process at school where we screen it in front of the class, and they are rather ruthless in terms of their feedback. So we did get that kind of objective feedback from folks who were more removed. But I also think it is something that I took into consideration big time when I started this project, knowing that it was I was telling someone else's story, but also telling my own. But I do think that there is value to that. And it was, I think we went into it trying to say, this is not the experience of every firefighter and every spouse of a firefighter and every child of a firefighter, but these are the commonalities that we'd like to talk about. And this is kind of framing it in one personal experience, which is why we use so much, family video and things like that. And it's, there was definitely a lot of bias, but also I hope it was clear enough that there was a lot of kind of, it was intended to be a conversation starter more than a lesson per se. So yeah. That's what I would say. Thanks for the question.
Almost did that again. Okay, so I'm going to ask Ivan the question. What is the most surprising bit of feedback that you've received from this film, from someone who's seen it, an audience member?
Well, to be honest, the biggest surprise was to have at least any feedback from the audience, because film traveled mostly to the online film festivals, and we didn't have an opportunity to have some feedbacks. And So yeah, thank you, Pendants, for having us and having this opportunity to chat about the films and have comments and asking questions. Yeah, but I had few opportunities to hear the feedback from a lot of the audience in live, and mostly it were questions about the first and the last shot in the film, how we made it, and was there any CGI in film in whole, and was that everything true? So basically, that was the questions, and yes, that all is true. No CGI, no extra added elements. We can't hear you again.
I said this is probably not a very surprising comment, but there you go. You have your
Thank
audience
you.
feedback there.
Thank you, Lena.
Oh, here's another one.
Okay, right down to
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you know what? Like we were just on a panel. I don't know if you guys caught it, on the future of digital film festivals, and we were talking to 7 other film festival directors, and we were talking about what can we do for filmmakers in this forum, right? And one of the surprising conclusions of that was ask filmmakers what they want. It's funny. It's sometimes the most obvious answers are clearly the best ones. And asking filmmakers all year, we've been asking, I'm a filmmaker, I ask filmmakers, what do you want? What are you missing? And they're like, I want to meet my audience. I want to know who's watching my films. And sometimes a single line can really change your mindset on something and really drive you to something. And someone said, I don't want to interview with you. I know you liked my film. You selected my film. I want to hear what other people have to say about my film. It's not enough to do a pre-recorded thing. So I'm really happy that we were able to do this. I know that if we had left your film open for 72 hours, I know that more people would have watched it. I do know that, right? But that's not the point. Every one of you will release this film at some point. Most of you will get a Vimeo staff pick. You will accumulate 150 to 250,000 views later down. The point of this was to give as close to a festival experience as we possibly could. So hopefully we're able to do that, and I love this panel happening right now. Does anyone have a question for?
I have a technical question. It's like, I didn't do my homework, unfortunately, because as I said, I was in the border. I just came back from Texas, and I couldn't see any of the films. I am dying to see all of them. Is there any chance? Is there an online in the festival? I still can see them, or it's gone?
Okay, so what I'm gonna ask everyone to do is move over to the private chat. Yeah, do you guys see the private chat?
Yeah.
Okay.
I see private chat, yeah.
Okay, Guillermo, can you please write your email in the private chat? Please don't write it in the comments section, because you're gonna be bombarded with a lot of spam mail. So from people trying to be in your next movie. I'm just kidding. But yeah, if you just write it in the private chat, I'm sure everybody here will be happy to send you a link to watch their film.
I love to. If you guys want to do it, I'd love to, because I mean, I'm hearing about the movies and I just couldn't see them.
Okay, so yeah, so just if you go over to the private chat, just type. Do you see it? Okay. Has my audio cut out again? Or people can still hear me? Okay. But I can't hear anyone. Okay, because everyone's mics are off. That's fine. Okay, so perfect. Okay, does anyone have any other questions for each other? Is there somebody who wants to just chime in and randomly ask a question to somebody else?
I have a question for Guillermo. I wanted to ask sort of, where does the line between non-fiction and fiction, where does it lie in your film? Because it felt so much of it felt like it was nonfiction. But then obviously there was a script, as you said. So I just sort of want to figure out how did you get to that, and how did you decide on how to?
Yeah, the process is very interesting. I as a filmmaker, I love this process because you learn so much doing it, and it's so funky, it's so unusual. Normally you script a film, and then you do the casting, and then you look for the lighting and directing and the whole thing. Here's the opposite. You do the casting, you do you know everything, and then you do the let me explain. So we go to a place with no budget and with, of course, no possibility of acting. And actually, what Action Against Hunger wanted is a documentary, not a fiction feature or short film. So they didn't provide any budget, or they didn't provide any acting, they didn't provide anything. It's just, this is the reality. This is where those people live, tell the story. So they were asking us pretty much to interview them and do a average documentary. Two things here is what is very stereotyped, but we don't have many time and we can argue about that. But anyways, two stereotypes, at least in my brain. Through documentaries, you only can reach so many people, because normally, and I'm not saying that's always, but normally, and I've done a lot of television, news, documentary, that's what I'm thinking that. Normally, documentaries are about information, data, so you can impress people. But fiction is about emotions, so you move people. And I think when you move people, the emotions stay with them longer, and you can reach a broader audience. So if Action Against Hunger wanted to talk about the invisible monster, because it's the hunger that you don't see, it's like, it's not the Biafra guys in Africa that is so obvious that they're starving. It's the people that could be your neighbor and could be hungry and you don't see it, and it's suffering, it's an internal suffering. It's the kid who may be hungry and you don't see, but because he's not getting enough food, he's not developing his brain and his body to the highest potential, so he's going to be handicapped for the rest of his life. Is the guy who doesn't have enough money to buy a clean shirt, so when he goes to a job interview, he's going to be rejected because he stinks, not because he's not smart enough. It's about the people who self-esteem is so down because they're hungry and because they feel horrible that they cannot provide food to their kids, and this idea that they're a failure goes with them and prevents them from enjoying life the way that anybody who's here in this panel tonight is doing it. So when they wanted as many people to know what this invisible monster, the hunger, is, so hopefully the new generation will understand, and people who is going to watch this movie in schools. It's a movie done for schools, for children to watch in schools and discuss about it, because we adults are a big failure. According to United Nations, according to UNESCO, according to everybody who's smart in this planet, hunger should be finished by the 21st century. And here we are. So if we don't know how to do anything, maybe the new generations can look from a different perspective. That's the idea. We're thinking, oh, he's hungry, give him some food. No, maybe, oh, he's hungry, give him some dignity, give him some self-esteem, recognize him as a human being, for whatever. Anyways, so that was our challenge. So our challenge is, okay, we want as many people to see it. We thought that more people will see it as a fiction that's a documentary. Now, how you do that with no elements? You go there. Javier and I went there. We went there for a couple of weeks, and we were watching, listening, without saying anything to anybody. So one morning we saw a guy opening a door, and the door was so beautiful and so cinematographic. He said, we want to shoot this door. Okay, so door opens. Why not? When? I don't know. Door opens. Boom. Another time we saw a guy coming with a motorcycle, and the guy had, like, it was missing one tooth and this, and a smile of this guy on a motorcycle. Then we stopped in a place, we saw an umbrella. Oh, this umbrella, we want this umbrella. The umbrella ended up in the motorcycle. Anyways, but so we have all the elements. And then we were hearing stories. We were interviewing as a documentary people, but not on camera, ourselves. So we heard of this person who has lost her husband during the war and is living in a refugee camp. And the story, okay, so person, this widow who lost her husband in the war, this place. So anyways, we have so many stories. And then what we did is put it together and with a voiceover who makes a link. So everybody who's on the screen is acting as himself or herself at the moment and is doing what he's doing. I mean, they don't even know what is that. It's like, okay, you go and do. You remember yesterday when you were picking up a cell phone here in the garbage? Go ahead and pick it up. We're gonna put it now. We're gonna plant it, but just do the same thing. Go and find a headphone. And so we're not inventing anything. Everything that we saw, we tell people to do it. And then the voiceover said, "My cousin." It wasn't his cousin. That's what we invented. Oh, my husband. It wasn't her husband. We invented that. But pretty much the widow who's there is a widow who's there for the same reason, because her husband was killed in the war. The war is the same war. The kid who's picking up the phone is the guy the little kid who we saw picking up the phone, and so on and so on. So it's little pieces of truth. So in a way that is fictional. It's not a reality. You know, we change the relation between the characters, and we change the timing and why they're doing that. But everybody's doing that. The guy who's selling the tires for the motorcycle is the guy who was selling tires for the motorcycle. And you know, as I said, we stop and say, "Hey, you sell a tire for a motorcycle? Do you mind selling for this character?" Yes, no problem.
Yeah.
That kind of story.
We do see that a lot, where the line of narrative fiction and documentary is blurred. Sometimes it's just in the style. Cinema verite is very like that. And what you've done, and you know, not like there are a lot of documentaries here at Pendants that are not strictly documentaries, and people may, you know, there are a lot of people who say, "Well, I don't like documentaries." Well, this is a genre that can expand in many different directions, and we've seen that with animation documentary, and we've seen that with many different ways. And genre is such a limiting term sometimes. You know, so we can expand beyond what the limits of a genre, you know, and do things that feel fresh. So we have a lot of questions here. Okay, so here, Megan, I really want to know how your brother is finding being a first responder. Have you seen a change in him like your mom did with your dad? Or are things better now since people in his profession do have more resources? That's a really great question. Thank you, Facebook user.
Yeah, it's a great question, because he when we made the film, he had been a firefighter, or he had joined the volunteer fire service, where like in my hometown, about 3 weeks. He had been accepted about 3 or 4 weeks before we started filming. So he was a very, very brand new firefighter. A lot of the filming we did, he was in training. And so he's been doing it, you know, going on a year and a bit now. And I mean, I don't want to say I have seen a change in him per se. Of course, he'd be the first one to say that he's, you know, he's doing great. And I'm sure he is. He I think had a pretty strong base going in, understanding, and it's true. There are, I think the fire service has done a great job. At least I can't speak for, you know, the rest of the world, but I can speak for kind of, you know, Nova Scotia, because it's kind of the closest fire service I've been connected to. But they've done a great job growing over the past while in terms of their kind of looking after their employees and their members, and so they do have kind of critical response teams, and they do have kind of resources available, but it still is up to the individual whether they want to take advantage of that or not. So he does have a lot of fantastic resources, and I think he is making use of them, which is really great. But he also has his dad and his grandfather to talk to, and I think they have established, you know, a much closer relationship than kind of previous generations have. I think they, you know, my dad and my brother have a much more kind of open line of dialogue between the two of them than perhaps my dad and his father had when they were growing up. So I think that makes a really big difference, and it makes a big difference to be able to come home and say, you know, I had a really hard call and I want to talk about it. You know, and it's a very specific example, but he came home, I know this, he came home one day and said, I had a really hard call, and my dad said, okay, and they made potato skins and they talked about it. And I think that's something that has really helped Connor, and that I hope that continues to help him, so that he doesn't, you know, he's going to see the same things. He's going to see the same things that his dad and his grandfather saw, but I hope that he has more, you know, just as much, if not more, opportunity to talk about it with the people who are closest to him and who understand him. Yeah.
That's a great response. We have a question here, which can be answered rather quickly. Where is everyone's home base? Judy, thanks a lot for that question. So we can express how global Pendance is by just letting everyone know where are we from. Should I start? I'm originally born in Croatia. Okay, let's start there. Let's go on from there.
Okay, Belgrade, Serbia.
Oh yeah, I'm from Madrid, Spain, but right now I'm in a puny place called Rhinebeck in the state of New York.
I'm originally from Halifax, Nova Scotia, in Canada, but right now I'm in Toronto.
I'm from Wales in the UK, but right now I'm in London.
I'm from Leuven in Belgium.
I'm from Lyon in France, but now I'm based in Paris.
Very nice. Here we go. We have a question. Thomas, have you stayed in touch with Edward? What is he up to now?
Ed, at the moment, so Ed's been he's been in Kyrgyzstan for a long time, because that's where he met a girl whilst he was traveling. I think he stayed 6 months in Kyrgyzstan trying to like weather the winter, and he was teaching English there, and he met a girl there, and they've been staying together for a while. And I think now he's actually back in Somerset, so he's hanging out there for a while. I don't know quite what he's up to. I've stayed in touch with him a little bit, sort of trying to keep him up to date when he's screening at festivals and stuff. But to be honest, Ed's not too. He's not necessarily too interested in festivals, and so he's just doing what Ed's doing.
Well, he seemed like such a free spirit that why would you box him into these Q&A slots, right? Like, you know, it's interesting. We just create the man, the myth, the legend with Ed, and putting him on the camera would be a lot like showing Ivan's fish. You know, we leave a lot to the yeah. So, anyways, this has been super cool, guys. I'm so happy that we had this forum to talk with all of you. You can unmute your mics now and, you know, say any final things that you'd like to say. But I am truly humbled, and I'm so excited and so happy that we were able to connect in this way, and it felt like a really meaningful conversation. And I'm really glad that you participated, and we're very happy to forever be able to say that you're Pendance filmmakers.
Thank you.
I would just say, because Ismail wasn't there earlier, but Ismail, I thought your film was incredible. Definitely, being from Belgium myself, and seeing all the news reports, even like recently with the 5-year anniversary of it. What you were saying about how the press sort of covers it and plays the game of terrorism in a big way. Like, seeing your film was so much more resonant than anything that I've seen, even with like the witness testimonies and everything like that. I thought it really, struck a chord. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the festival, guys. You all do have passes, so check out whatever you can and enjoy. There is one. Oh gosh, there's a question. It's a last-minute question. This person just made it, and it is. Oh my God! It's the biggest question in the history of the world. Okay, okay. I have one for Ismail. First off, greetings from France. Is there some sort of conceptual continuity in your filmography from your very first film? If I recall, the title was Hot Pursuit, up until your very last film, Malbik, which seems to win award after award all over the world. Congrats for this, by the way. Did you hire a publicist to enter your Q&A and to hype you up? I mean, the hype is absolutely well deserved, but my God, what a glowing.
I don't know if this person is coming from the FSB, but he knows very well my hidden biography, and I have to say that the link between this film is not about thematic, is the way to maybe to experiment and to use anything that I have around me, and the link is that my first film was using a game engine to make the film, to make the mise en scène, and it's the same with Malbec, which is based to make the animation. We took many pictures about the place, and then we transformed it into 3D, where we built this very fragmented aesthetic that is a reflection of the broken memory of Sabine. But you know, with animation, we plan a lot of things, like we are storyboarding and everything. And I personally don't think like that. I don't think with the scenario, because I come more from a documentary background. So I tried to keep this experimentation, or to capture what is live in front of me, and that's why I used a game engine to do that in real time. I mean, all the movement of the film, all the mise en scène is just a live capture of all the setup. So the idea was for me to keep this this live aspect, this organic aspect, and to experiment it. So that was the link with Hot Pursuit, I think.
Perfect. We got into hidden bios. We got into your filmography. This is amazing. You know, I do believe this is good career advice to people, to hide a few of their first shorts. But this is such a lovely to connect with all of you. And yeah, I hope these films go on. Some of them have already gone to mega film festivals, but I hope that you continue to do well with film festivals, that film festivals go live very soon, and that you're able to meet the audience, because I think all of these films will stir the audience up. And I imagine all of you have a habit of sneaking out of your screening and just peeking in to see what's happening. And I hope that you see good things, because these are really, really good films. And if there's anything that we can do for you, please reach out. You have a lifelong lifeline to us, and if there's anything we can ever do for you at Pendance, please let us know, and we will support you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure. And I love the opening when you said that a filmmaker mission is posing questions rather than giving answers. I think we keep doing that, we're in the right place.
I think you guys are all asking the most interesting of questions. Take care. See you guys. Bye.
Adios.
Bye.
See you, bye.
Bye.